Purple Daily is daily Vikings entertainment. You just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.
I will ride with this group.
Seriously, man. Please.
And away we go.
Happy Thorsday to all who celebrate. It's a Thorsday edition of Purple Daily here. Our friend Thor Nystrom from Matthew Berry's Fantasy Life to bring his football-loving expertise. We will get to Thor's college football junkie thing to watch for Vikings fans this weekend. There's a million things to dive into. Thor and I were tailgating last weekend. But, Judd, tell the audience about our friends at Padrigs, or Porrigs, as the natives say. Padrigs.
Yeah, you know what? Call it what you want. I'm going to call it one thing. Outstanding beer. Show and tell time, folks. That's right. Exactly. Look at this. The lager. Look at that's a six-pack right there. Delicious. Can you think of anything better than a fall day, for instance, on the deck, watching football with some Padrigs right here? No, you can't, because it is fantastic. I've talked about the red beer, but you know what? If you want something a little bit lighter, this is an outstanding lager. So check it out. And now you're saying, Sports Dad, where can I get the beer? I'm going to tell you right now. Over 80 liquor stores have this in the Twin Cities. So definitely try the red, the lager, all of their outstanding beers. And check them out at their website, podrigs.com. That's podrigs.com.
Thor, what's it going to take? You were rocking the JJ McCarthy jersey around Vikingsville this last week. And what's it going to take for the Sam Darnold jersey to hit your shopping cart online?
We're not going to get a jersey. We're trending towards a T-shirt though, and only not the jersey. I want a multi-year,
like a jersey, or what are we thinking here?
You know, we could get a shirt with Sam on it. You know, we could put the number on the back. But if I'm going the jersey, I want a multi-year guy. And Sam's playing great, and we're about to get to beyond our wildest dreams. But Sam's not going to be the starting quarterback next year.
So would you buy?
He can be somewhere else starting, I think.
Well, maybe a Sam Darnold Dolphins jersey.
Yes, now we're talking. Yeah, now we're talking.
There. Just a little speculation among friends here.
Yeah.
Let's start with developing quarterbacks, and it's kind of interesting when you look around the first 2 weeks of the NFL, the different examples you see of how to and how not handle young quarterbacks. So on the positive side, patience has paid off for Sam Darnold and the Vikings. Okay, let's resurrect his career. Shows you just how badly he was managed with the Jets, the work that Geno Smith has been doing, and now the Seahawks are 2-0. You know, he's connecting with his top two receivers for 22 combined receptions in that game last week. And then Baker Mayfield's just been lights out since he arrived in Tampa. And then on the other side, the Panthers are benching Bryce Young. Caleb Williams, historically bad average net yards per attempt through the first two games. What are we learning about how to and how not to handle young quarterbacks?
And you didn't even bring up Sean Payton, who manipulated the NFL into allowing the Broncos to get Bo Nix. And boy, is that worked out.
What a master, yes.
Yeah. You know, Tom Brady was talking about this on doing the broadcast about Tom Brady went to Michigan for 5 years, right? He said he started at QB7 on the depth chart. A couple years later, he's worked up to QB3, and then he eventually gets the starter. He was in a platoon with Drew Henson. That's a story for another time. But about how, you know, after his 5 years, then he went in and he learned a system. He got an entire year to sit on the bench. And Brady said it's a travesty that teams are throwing the quarterbacks in there right away when they're not ready. And then the public discourse about them turns, and then all of a sudden the fan base is turned on that quarterback because of their unrealistic expectations heading in. I think we have something of a blueprint here. You have to be pretty special to hit the ground running right away and to not have the circumstances around you break you. Brady was advocating that all the rookie quarterbacks sit for the entire first year. I wouldn't go quite that far, but it's got to be a real special exception to that.
So, like, there's a lot of talking points here, right? There's like, okay, Sam was with the Jets and the Panthers, and those, as we've discussed before, those teams were dumpster fires. But I think another really important thing is this. Sam Darnold, up until now considered a failure, is 27 years old. And there's just a maturation as well. Like, not all people develop at the same rate. Some people, I suspect McCarthy has it, right? He's a mature guy. I think he can lead a team. Quite frankly, I think if you had asked him to play this year, Thor, it wouldn't have been a disaster. But like, there's a lot of things in this stew, including, and I'm not saying that Sam was going out and partying and being a moron. I'm saying that he's just young and it takes time, and you're in New York. So I think we forget, like, I think if you asked a person on the street last year, how old is Darnold? Just a casual fan, right? They'd probably be like, oh, he's got to be almost 30 years old, right? And he's not. So like, that's another part that I don't think that we take into account is Darnold has a coach now and an infrastructure who's really, really good, but he also has seen a lot. He's developed a lot, and quite frankly, can probably process far better at 27 than 21.
That's right. Yeah. And of course, the better personnel around him and the better play callers around him playing to his strengths and not to his weaknesses, that helps as well. But another thing that, and Sam's been talked about a lot, one of the contextual things I don't think that's been discussed enough, he came into the NFL, he declared for the NFL draft after his redshirt sophomore year, right? The Bill Parcells rules are what they are for a reason. And one of the major tenets of it is want the several years starting in college, go through it at least 4 years or to 5 in college, and and then hit these certain benchmarks. Parcells did not like the quarterbacks who didn't have a ton of experience. Sam had shown all kinds of physical ability, especially in that redshirt sophomore year at USC. You saw the howitzer of an arm he has. He has athleticism at his size. Obviously, he's a sturdy guy as well. But yeah, you haven't learned at that point to read NFL defense, beat NFL speed. Right, a lot of this stuff is timing, right? Where it has to be like a watchmaker. And how would you be able to develop that skill when you haven't played much in college? You're super young, and now in his case, you're going to the biggest media market in the entire world, where they're expecting you to be a savior right away. It's beyond unrealistic. It wasn't going to happen, particularly with the play caller and the personnel he had around him. If he had sat for a year, I don't know what that coaching staff, how much better it would have gotten in the future. But like, there's, again, going back to, there's very few quarterbacks that have declared after their redshirt sophomore year and been first round picks. Michael Vick, I might have been the first one. There has not been a ton of them since then. So Sam was coming in as one of the younger quarterbacks and with some of the least experience of any quarterbacks with only 2 active years in college. You have to give him those benefit of the doubts. And now that he's found himself in a better situation, he's had all those years to develop these skills of reading NFL defenses and playing within the system, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And now you find yourself in a great situation, and he's been playing lights out.
So Thor, with all the rookie quarterbacks that have struggled early just through the first few weeks, is JJ McCarthy still set up the most for success here with all these other guys that are just not playing very well? And hell, you could even throw in Michael Penix into that mix too with the Falcons. I know Colin Cowherd has also made that big point of both these guys sitting. It's the best thing for them with Nix and Williams and maybe Jaden Daniels too not living up to expectations. It feels like it was a good thing that JJ McCarthy is not playing right away, even with the unfortunate circumstance with the injury.
Yeah, it's tough because you never want to, like with injuries, it's never good news. But in this case, it wasn't bad, right? Like, because those different things we talked about this on a previous episode where you can develop some of these skills off the field. Judd had mentioned the VR that they're putting McCarthy through, the similar type VR system to what turned Jaden Daniels when he was going from Arizona State to LSU, from an undrafted guy, someone that the NFL was not interested in, to 2 years later, all of a sudden he's a number 2 overall pick. His talent level didn't change. He didn't become more athletic. He certainly didn't gain weight, and the arm talent was what it was. It was the reading the defenses and the coverages right when we get to the line. Can you get any tip-offs about what kind of coverage they're in? What's our formation? Where's the primary read? If that safety steps to the left, does 2 steps to the right or the left first, then where do we go? Like all the different number thing, reading the coverage and then making the correct decision on time and hitting the dude on the hands. Like that's the kind of stuff that McCarthy is going to be able to learn. So yeah, I don't think it's a bad thing. But the other point I want to make about this is McCarthy, from Kevin O'Connell's comments right after he went down, we all know he said the thing about we have found our franchise quarterback, but his other comments vis-a-vis that were indicating that JJ was coming up on Sam's heels. And so, we don't know how that would have ended up playing out. But if I do, to your question, Dex, I do think that JJ would have been the exception to the struggles that we have seen with the rookie quarterbacks had he been playing. But of course, it in this case, it doesn't matter because Sam's playing so well. And obviously the Vikings are undefeated.
We should this would be a fun hard to quantify research project. Maybe Dex can look this up for us at some point. If you were to go back the last like 20, 25 years and look at the state of the franchises drafting quarterbacks, and you were to put young first and second round quarterbacks into one of two bins, franchises that are looking for that quarterback to save them versus franchises that, you know what? Yeah, we're fine. We're fine. We don't need Patrick Mahomes. We're winning 11 games. We got Alex Smith, but let's bring Patrick Mahomes in here and sit him for him. We don't need Aaron Rodgers. We don't need Jordan Love, but let's bring him in here. The Vikings didn't they needed JJ McCarthy long term, but it's not a garbage franchise that when you look at the Jets historically, the Panthers, Bryce Young, oh, we're desperate. Please save our garbage franchise, right? The Bears are usually a poorly run last place team. Oh my God. Mitch Trubisky, save us. Caleb Williams, please save us. The percentage chance of the, oh my God, save our garbage franchise quarterbacks busting, I think is very high. And the percentage of, you know what, with or without Patrick Mahomes, we're still going to win 10 games. That'd be a fun exercise. And if you look at Penix with Atlanta's not an amazingly run organization, and you take issue with the way that but you know what? They're competitive. They got weapons. They got pieces. They got Kirk. They can sit Michael Penix behind him for a minute. They're not looking for Penix to save their franchise, just like the Vikings aren't looking for McCarthy to save their franchise.
For sure. Yeah. And you're getting back to, sort of what Tom Brady was talking about, and it's a chicken or the egg about, what is the importance or what leads to it. But it's the same idea of the quarterbacks that are able to sit, whether that's because of the situation, whether that's just because the idea is that it's beneficial to their development. You have seen more success with some of those guys. And then these guys that get tossed out, you have the much higher preponderance of the bust thing. Right. And that's hard to get rid of. And the stuff that we're talking about with these quarterbacks, it doesn't have to do with arm strength. It doesn't have to do with athleticism. This stuff's all between the ears. Right. And being able to read that coverage, being able to the timing of the offense, that watchmaker type thing, that stuff that takes time to develop. It takes time to see. It takes time to ascertain the decision-making process with it. So to me, that stuff all makes sense.
It's so much too based on, I think we think a guy like Darnold is just a bust because he's just not any good. He wasn't what they thought he was. The reality is this: when you go from college to the pros, you can get away with, as Thor, you know better than anyone, you can get away with a ton of stuff. Yeah. Like if you're an athlete, you can get away with a lot of stuff. In the pros, you can't. In fact, on the bonus PD that Phil and I did this morning, I asked Darnold about his deep throws because since training camp they've been perfect, spot on. And I didn't watch him a ton before. So I'm like, were you always that good with deep throws? And he said, no, I really work on that now. And I said, okay, what do you work on? Because clearly your arm was strong. Like you didn't get an arm transplant between San Francisco and here. So what did you work on? And he said, I need to keep my head steady. And I need to focus on the target, and I cannot look. He said, my inclination when I threw a deep ball previously was to, I guess, whip around and look, right? Like bang, bang. And he's like, you can't. He's like, you got to stay focused. Your head has to stay. So it's stuff like that. And I'm sure O'Connell helped. I'm sure Kyle Shanahan helped. But more importantly, you just learn a lot as well, right? So those are the nuanced things. Because his deep ball has been, that pass to Jefferson was phenomenal, and those are the type of things though that if you don't have patience, if you are like, okay, day one you're starting, go to it, kid. Guy's not going to know that. He's got to learn that.
Yeah, 1,000%. And we typically talk about the arm strength and the touch and that stuff's all important. Of course, he's talking about the timing of things, right? And in the NFL, if you have your split second window, you wait a split second longer, that can turn a 97-yard touchdown pass into an interception. Let's not forget that throw was into double coverage, and he was not wrong to make that throw. It was just he was on time. And the throw, of course, was perfect. And then you allow one of the best receivers that the NFL has seen the last decade to do his thing after that. But that's you're hitting on exactly where the development of Sam has gone and where he has improved, which has allowed the things like the arm strength and the arm talent and the athleticism, those things to flower up and play up. But yeah, you if you don't have that, it doesn't matter how much arm talent or how athletic you are. You could have all of it in the world. You're still going to struggle if you can't read the defense and know exactly the second that you pull the trigger, be on time, and then everything else.
Thor, the Vikings have a running game.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun. With Dalvin Cook, they had excellent running games for years, and obviously Adrian Peterson. So we've seen great Vikings running games, but man, the last couple of years, like the last year of Dalvin was not the same as it was early in the Dalvin Cook era, and then last year the Alex Madison experiment. But they're well over 100 yards in each of the first two games. I think they're top 10 in average yards per attempt. They're setting up. I mean, that was that 97-yard touchdown pass. That was a play action out of the end zone, and it held a couple defenders. Safety kind of came in for a second, and Jefferson goes by and blows the top off the defense. But what a difference it makes. And this also feels like Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi too. The signing of Josh Oliver a year ago. They've wanted this to happen. I think they wanted it to happen more in year one, and then they really thought it was going to happen in year two. But it's nice to have a couple running backs that can bounce it to the outside. But just your take on the Vikings running game through the first couple weeks here, Thorsky.
Yeah, of course you have the improvement of talent at the running back position, and that's super important to this. Also want to shout out, in particular, Brendel at guard has been absolutely fabulous. You have to tip your cap there. He's been flawless both run and pass pro. And the other two guys there on the interior, they're good run blockers too. Still have some issues with Ingram's pass blocking, but as far as the run blocking, that offensive line, which we talked about, is the best the Vikings have had in years and years and years. They're opening up those holes, and then you have now Chandler is a year older. We saw him make some explosive plays. You have Aaron Jones, the veteran hand in there. The defense has to respect it. And the value of this thing, it's not just the one-off of the runs themselves. Of course, you get more efficiency in your offense that way. But, Phil, you mentioned it. It also is way more viable to the play action, right? Like the defense is way more susceptible to bite up on that when you are gouging them on the ground. That just opens up space for the fabulous receiving corps that the Vikings have. And again, going back to Mr. Justin Jefferson, you have to respect the run game now. I think before, and you only had so many resources, and of course it was a new administration, so you can't criticize them too much. But because of the situation they were in, they were trying to make Alexander Madison a thing. For instance, you had offensive line injuries, and then all of a sudden it was requiring you to play way more one-handed as far as your offense and go through the pass. You don't have that threat, and then you're also not baiting people on those play action looks. Another thing to keep in mind here, again, going beyond the run game, just the ability for it to be there and to be viable. Kevin O'Connell, how many better play callers in the NFL are there than Kevin O'Connell?
Right now? Not many. Right now? I mean,
Very
been great.
Right. And you think about what does it take to be a good play caller? The ability to be able to do anything at any time, which you can only do if you have a quality run game, because it's not plausible otherwise. You have now opened up the entire tapestry for Kevin O'Connell. Whereas before, game scenarios or game situations or entire games, it was like only 60% of what he could access or 50%. And again, not as plausible for the defense in order to bait them into different things. Now that you have a good passing game and a good running game, and you have a virtuoso, a prodigy calling plays, I mean, that's why this is getting really fun.
Judd, I mean,
hold on.
Get the flag. I'm excited. Okay, I'm gonna do something unprecedented right now on Thorsday. More of a visual for the YouTube audience, but we'll talk you through it. Since you brought up play calling, and if you missed the Trenches with Boone episode, Alex Boone, 10 years in the NFL trenches, spent a couple with the Vikings, played in the Super Bowl, does amazing film breakdowns for us. I'm gonna pop this up here. This is gonna look wonky at first, Dex, because I'm doing an entire screen share. Let's see here. Do this and then bring this in. Okay. If you want to pop that up for me.
Yeah.
So I'm going to show you guys real quick back-to-back plays. The first one is, and I can't remember what quarter these are in, but the first one's a handoff to Chandler, and the Vikings are looking to cross the 50-yard line here. And you'll see, listen, man, what I'm about to say is parroted from an NFL offensive lineman. Do not confuse me with someone who is an expert in offensive line trenches play. But you're going to see here, this is called duos. You're going to see double teams on two tackles, a double team from the tight ends here on Nick Bosa, and then you've got guards going up and climbing up to these linebackers here, right? So I'll just watch this play out, And then watch the second play and what Kevin O'Connell does, a twist on the play calling. So you got Darnold handing off for the audio audience to Ty Chandler. Boom, bounces it to the outside because he sees Fred Warner. This is a great read by Ty Chandler. He sees Fred Warner jump up into this gap and decides, I'm just going to bounce this and go pick up whatever, a huge chunk of yardage, right?
And he's got the speed to do it.
And they've done this a few times. This is like a 25-yard gain, right? Now we're inside the red zone. Beautiful. They were working the Niners in the run game the entire day. So the Niners, now the ball's at the 10-yard line. The Niners are very much aware of how the Vikings are working them in the run game. Watch what Kevin O'Connell does here with Jalen Nailor. So he's in the he's in the slot technically because I think there's a receiver down here below him, right? He brings Nailor in blocking position. Oh, now these guys are thinking, okay, this is how many times would you see a receiver come in here like this next to the tackle inside the tight end? It's like it's a run play probably, right? Mm-hmm. This must be a run play. Well, let's run it. Oh, he blows by the two defenders, and you see it even better from the all-22 angle here. But what happens is, and again, I know this is tough for the audio audience, but when Nailor is in the slot, if they run this play as currently constructed, a cornerback or a safety is gonna carry Jalen Nailor out of this position, and he's gonna cover him into the end zone, right? But because Nailor comes in and lines up between the tight end and the tackle, these two defensive backs, look at them. They're literally hugging each other, waiting for Ty Chandler to come in through one of these gaps and expecting to be blocked by, they're literally expecting to be blocked by Jalen Nailor here. And he slips out the back door. Nobody covers him. Wide open. This is a schemed touchdown by Kevin O'Connell right here more than anything else. I just wanted, because Thor brought up play calling, I wanted to put that up on the screen for you guys, for the YouTube audience. Just a brilliant nuance.
Beautiful. Yeah, exactly. And it brings a tear to your eye. It's and scheme touchdown is the correct way to say that. And now you can play one thing off another. You can give them one look, then you can come back the other way. And you can do anything in any scenario. And Phil, I loved how you circled those two defensive backs for the 49ers. They had that moment of like, what are we doing here? You know, when
is he gonna block? It's a run. He's gonna block us, right? Yeah,
exactly. And now you're causing confusion for the defense. This is pre-snap, right? Like all the ability to be multiple is what will cause a delay in their first step after the snap, right? And so you're doing all these different things. But it's no surprise that the Vikings have had the success they have because of the play calling that they have, and then the ability to be multiple. And that was a beautiful example.
And so KO's off to a great start, but on the defensive side, Brian Flores might be off to a better one. Like that's the incredible thing. Like when you think about the schematics between both of them, and I do think it helps that in training camp practices there is, I think, a competition there, right? Like B-Flow does not want to give up any. It's like he is not going to do. He doesn't care what your script is. He wants to destroy it. And O'Connell's a very nice guy, competitive as hell. And so it's great. And Darnold, I think, really benefited in training camp from going against Flores' scheme because Flores doesn't back off his scheme. So it's such an interesting a weave here that's being done between play calling and also execution and training camp practices because, you know, the 97-yard touchdown pass to Jefferson, Thor, we saw that exact type of play in training camp, and the coverage was all over Justin. So it wasn't like, okay, we saw that play in training camp, but they went easy on him. I'd be hard-pressed to say right now, potentially hot take, there is a better play calling combination from an offensive and defensive side than KL and Brian Flores.
1,000%. I don't even know if it's debatable. Flores is overqualified for the position that he's in, but you allow him to just focus on that. We're seeing all these crazy things. I mean, last year, the split, as you guys know, between the dropping 8 and then the 0 blitzes, the NFL had never seen a split like that before. The crazy alignments they go in. I found it funny. My buddy Mike Renner, now at CBS, he tweeted out where the Vikings had 8 guys in the box, and then they right around the line of scrimmage, and then they dropped into a cover 2 look on it. I mean, like Flores was in his bag on Sunday. We know that guy's creative. He was tossing everything at the 49ers, and you could see the confusion that was causing the 49ers offense, and in particular Brock Purdy, who sought out Brian Flores after the game to give him flowers for how ridiculous that scheme is. He called it crazy. He's like, your scheme is crazy, man. Like, Brock Purdy, the reason he got to where he is, it's because he's a really good processor. He's seen it all, and he knows what to do. And Flores was discombobulating him, where all of a sudden you're getting Purdy glitching in the pocket. That offense, especially without Christian McCaffrey, all of a sudden they were dead in the water. That game, the Vikings controlled it from start to finish, soup to nuts. There was no doubt who was going to win that game. And by the way, we haven't even talked about this yet. It ended up being a 6-point win that probably should have been a 20-plus point win. Right, with the turnovers in the red zone and the different stuff like that. Easily could have been more, but yeah, just an emphatic win. And Flores, man, he's doing some of the best job that you see with defensive play calling. And Judd, to your point, you have Kevin O'Connell, who has to be considered a top 3 offensive play caller at this point. Brian Flores, I don't know who you would put above him. And you have, going back to your thing about practice, you know, you talk about the idea of like competition breeds improvement from everybody. We talk about that typically with regards to players. When you have a chess match every single day in practice of, you have a chess master on one side, Kevin O'Connell, you have a chess master on the other side, Brian Flores, you think they're improving? For sure. I mean, like, they're going up against one of the best play callers on the other side of the ball every single day. So, you know, and giving them different looks and everything like that. But what a job by Brian Flores so far.
So let's give credit to, and I've talked about this a lot, but I think it's an important point to discuss, which is the intelligence of the players on defense, which I think is sky high. I mean, Flores is great, but if he doesn't have a really, really smart crew, you cannot do what he is doing. Like that look that turned into a Tampa 2, you got to be really, really smart. I think the guy that deserves a ton of credit, speaking of giving guys their flowers, Stephon Gilmore. I talked to him in the locker room yesterday, and I've always been fascinated by cornerbacks traveling. Like, to me, that's a big ask, right? You're playing the left side here, then you're playing the right side. And I was watching him on Sunday, and I'm like, he's traveling, but it's not always with a receiver. Like, ordinarily, right? It's like, I'm going to follow Deebo Samuel, and that's my job today. And keep in mind, this guy showed up at training camp in late August. So like he knew Brian's system from the Patriots days, but that's in football terms, that's ages ago. And I said, as far as traveling, explain like the theory behind how this works, because it doesn't look like you're always following a receiver. And he said, no, I'm not. He said, it depends. I can play boundary, I can play inside. And basically, in the Vikings case, and this is where it goes football, guys. We're about to get in the dirt here. In the Vikings case, he is literally traveling based on the scheme of the down. And he said, I won't do it every game. But he said, I'll do it sometimes. But he's not necessarily on a receiver. He is at times. But it's also, and if you see the look of that guys up front that turns into a Tampa 2, Thor, if you go back and look at that, look at what they have to do very, very quickly as far as getting into the right places. And I mean, the Gilmore signing right now, it not only strengthened by a lot the corner room, but it gave them another in what I think is a fairly long list of football PhDs. I mean, the guy is brilliant.
Yeah.
Dirty.
1,000%. Yeah. Fortified a room that needed to be fortified, and then can do all that different stuff. That another compliment I'll give Flores is, he has this, going even with the Gilmore signing, obviously that elevated the cornerback room a decent amount. Although I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that our friend Peter Bukaki, who covers the Packers, said that the Vikings were burning money on fire when they signed Stephon Gilmore. Shout out to Peter. But obviously
Bukaki?
Elevated that. And then you mentioned it, the football IQ. But Flores also with this scheme, and Gilmore is speaking to it with that quote that you just mentioned. You have this amoeba type defensive philosophy where it's shifting. You're essentially disguising what is not on paper an elite cornerback room, because of the way that you're doing that. And everyone's being used in non-traditional ways, sort of outside of the book, and it's playing and play out specific, context specific. But because of that, yeah, I mean, you're seeing what on paper people were like, oh, this cornerback room is going to get shredded. They were not considering the Brian Flores defense and the different things he could do in order to mitigate what some people thought was including myself, a lack of talent at that position.
Yeah, man, the vibes. I still think this game against the Texans is to bounce back after that win against the Niners. I do think there's a good chance the Texans come in, win, and then the Vikings fall to 2-1. Maybe they get knocked down a couple pegs, but then the games against the Packers and the Jets in London. We have more to get to with Thor here, including Thor's college football junkie thing to watch for Vikings fans. But, I see a lot of you probably wondering, oh, Mackie, what is that glorious cup that you are holding on these shows here? And this right here, folks, look at JJ. Look at this is actually this is Jetta's right here. This is Jets. Pepsi has unveiled a brand new 32-ounce Justin Jefferson souvenir cup that right now, as of today, is available only inside US Bank Stadium. More information on other places you can get it coming soon. But the cool thing is there's a QR code on the cup right here that allows you to scan it and enter to win Victor's Ride, a glorious Vikings-themed Polaris ATV that you can win. And you have to get the Justin Jefferson Cup with the QR code. But Jason from Egan won it last year, which they actually delivered it to his house in Egan. I'm pretty sure CJ Ham was there. Victor was there. Yeah. The Skull Line was there.
Judd's on the drums. Yeah, I think Judd's actually in the Skull Line there. Yeah,
right there.
Was Kirk there? I'm looking for Kirk.
It was a Tuesday. So
it didn't work. Okay, of course not.
Actually, it was available technically, but yeah.
Pepsi also giving away a solo pizza stove and Vikings autograph merch as well. So get your Justin Jefferson Pepsi souvenir cup inside US Bank Stadium. More information to come. And show us your cups. Tweet them at me, at Phil Mackey. Judd, if you have an ugly deck, what should you do about it? Tell the audience.
You should definitely check out the folks that want to eliminate ugly decks. Look, it's getting to be fall, right? So it's getting cold outside, but it's not freezing cold. It's that perfect time of year to sit outside on your deck. So if you're looking outside right now and your deck is not in good shape, uglydeck.com can make your deck look absolutely perfect. Build you a deck like these that are just gorgeous. You can sit out there, you can sip on a beverage, you can watch football, you can enjoy what I consider to be the best season in this state, which is the fall. Uglydeck.com. Uglydeck.com. Check them out, and I guarantee you will be happy that your ugly deck is gone.
Amen. All right. Hey, Thor, got to ask you about this. I don't know if you saw this clip, but the legendary Mel Kyper Jr. on an ESPN podcast, and then so Greeny was on the podcast with him and said, Mel, we got to get you on Get Up. Got to get you on Get Up this morning. We wanted to say what you just said on this podcast on national TV this morning. So Mel Kyper went on a rant about, because there's a bunch of data that passing production and pass attempts are way down in the first 2 weeks. Teams are trying to run the ball more, but just overall explosive plays to the passing game are way down to the first 2 weeks. And it's because teams are playing more too high safety and trying to keep big plays in front. And Mel Kyper goes on a rant, and I'll sum it up by saying he thinks the NFL should outlaw the too high safety look so that teams can hit big passing plays over the top. He literally went on, he was talking about, like, back in my day, I used to watch guys like Johnny Unitas and Terry Bradshaw throw the ball down the field to, Lance Alstott, Lynn Swann catching passes down the field. It's ruining the NFL. Or, I don't know, you could run the ball when they put two safeties up top. I don't know, Thor. What do you think the solution is here?
Definitely not what Mel Kyper said. This is a chess match, right?
Todd.
Yeah, exactly. If they're gonna thin out the box and put the two eyes, that is where the importance of the aforementioned running game comes in, right? And then forcing the defense to make adjustments or forcing those safeties to step up because it's you have a viable threat at the run game, whatever it is, to open up those possibilities. Or with the passing game, so they did this to Patrick Mahomes, his first season as the starter, which was his second season in the NFL. The Chiefs were hitting a bunch of explosive downfield plays. Mahomes, of course, everyone knows, as the howitzer for an arm, etc. Defenses after that started going obnoxiously to the too high safety thing of like, Pat, we're going to make you beat us down the field. And the Chiefs were like, okay, great. And, Mahomes was like, bet. And so then it was just the efficiency stuff. And then the yards after the catch and that sort of stuff. Anything the defense throws at you, we have confined parameters of this game, right? Like there's spacing. You only get 11 guys. We get 11 guys. If you decide to do that to take away the explosive passes, fine. We'll slice and dice it with the efficiency stuff the whole game. And when you modulate, you amend your strategy to try to take that away, that's when we'll hit you over the top. Or if you wanted us just to keep paper cutting you the whole game, like defense used to do to our boy Ed Donatel, we'll do that too.
Yeah, and so you're trying to tell me that Mel wants to put in a rule where basically Justin Jefferson can't be game planned as much, which is ridiculous. But here's the thing that the Vikings also have, and if Aaron Jones hadn't fumbled, we'd be talking about this more. And this is with trying to take away the receivers. They have a screen game now with Aaron Jones. So like that screen game, like you can see it now conceptually. It's starting, and I've always said this: the screen game to me looks very, very simple, unless you're bad at the screen game, i.e., the Vikings the past 2 years. So yeah, I mean the idea of taking away and putting in another rule. Just by the way, no. The idea of saying, well, Justin Jefferson on that 97-yard touchdown pass should have been single covered.
Yeah.
He already beat two guys. 44-yard pass against the Giants. He should have been single covered. He beat two guys. This league is full of receivers with great hands. So that's one of the stupidest things I have heard.
They're trying to liken it to like the shift, getting rid of the shift in baseball. But I mean, these are the ebbs and flows of the history of football.
Yeah,
okay, we'll put two safeties up. Okay, then run the ball. Run the ball, and if you can't run the ball, then make some changes in the offseason and go get some more meat and potatoes up front.
And if you play two safeties high consistently now, I'm going to tell you, play callers on the offensive side love it. Like they wouldn't want that. There's more confusion. I mean, watch the Vikings defense, right? Safety comes down. Where's he going? Is he dropping back or not? So like when the Donna shell comes out, I think guys like O'Connell are giddy about it. So I think that they would actually be against this because it's tricking up something they don't need tricked up for them.
That's 1,000%. And this is evolution in any walk of life. This isn't just in football, but like an example of this at the Big 12 back in the day, they started going to the spread systems and Mike Leach and the air raid because you had these defenses where you'd have the middle linebacker that couldn't cover. He was like the downhill knock people's heads, the slobber knocker type guy, but was stiff and couldn't cover. And then you'd only have out your standard allotment of the four defensive backs. Well, that's how the air raid got started. It was addressing the defensive strategy and taking advantage of it by facilitating the ball into space. That's all it was. It wasn't like YOLO throws downfield. It's just we put four receivers out there and you're in that alignment. We are going to force you out of doing what you do. You go along with that. You had the Rich Rodriguez where it was the spread option. It was a whole bunch of different spread stuff going on, evolution to address the defensive play style at the time of college football. Well, then all of a sudden now college football defenses, you're going to 3-3-5s, right? And you're getting more speed on the field. You're now able to address those spread offenses. Well, now some teams are going back the other way. Right, where they're like, West Virginia is a great example of this last year, where West Virginia didn't appear to be a super talented team on paper, but they had built a good offensive line and they had a downhill running game with two solid running backs and a dual threat quarterback. And they were like, these 3-3-5 defenses without much meat on the field in these thinned out boxes, we're just going to pound them all game. We're going to control the clock. We're going to be efficient on offense. And that worked. So now, and there's numerous examples of this, but it's the same thing here. It's up to the play callers to adjust to the circumstances that they're given. And fortunately enough for the Vikings fans, we have two of the best in the business on each side of the ball.
Football! Football! Yeah! Football! Football! Yes, sir!
Dude, amen. Hey, are you just around the NFL here? In terms of, first 2 weeks, the best teams in the NFL in average net yards per play. So offense, net yards per play on offense, and then how many are you allowing? The best teams in the NFL are the Saints number 1, the Vikings number 2, the Chargers number 3, and the Seahawks number 4. to what extent are you a believer in Saints, Vikings, Chargers, Seahawks? Maybe not to be the 4 best teams in the league at the end of the year, but to be playoff teams.
I mean, I wouldn't put a 4-team parlay on it, but I think that there is some some signal to take from the noise. And the thing we were just talking about the way, the ebbs and flows and the evolution of the game, I think it's fascinating that Jim Harbaugh's offense in year 1 with the Chargers is doing as well as it is. And I think that in some ways speaks to this, right? Like, it was like an offense that even right before JJ McCarthy got there in Michigan, people were saying the game has passed Jim Harbaugh by. You can't play football that way anymore. But in an era where all the defenses are going to, let's take pounds off the field and put more speed onto it, have 5 defensive backs out there, it is the perfect antidote to that. The Vikings one, it's more the multiple thing. Obviously, the Chargers can play physical ball against defenses that are more equipped to deal with speed. The Saints, they have a great play caller, and that has helped out very much there. But all those teams use their running game. To your point, you can't be one-handed in the NFL to either side and be effective. So I think that's the big takeaway there.
So of those 4 teams, which one do you think is probably the most likely to regress and not be as good as they currently look? Because, I mean, the Saints have put up a ridiculous amount of points in 2 weeks.
I would have to say the Saints of that grouping of teams, because, I think that schematics have played a part in that, and maybe some cough, Dallas Cowboys opponents overlooking them a bit. And now when you get deeper into the season, not only are they being taken more seriously, but now there's tape of that offensive scheme. I don't want to call it smoke and mirrors, but some of the ways that they've been able to generate yards, you have to imagine are going to start getting taken away. They have pretty similar personnel to what they've had in the past. The offensive line, I'll give them credit from the executive side. They did improve that offensive line over the offseason. And they have some good pieces there for sure. But like some of this was schematics, and I think that can be addressed.
Yeah. Okay, Thor's college football junkie thing to watch this weekend for Vikings fans. What's happening on Underdog right now as we go into week 3, Dex?
Well, it's Thursday night football, which is obviously great. I love me some Thursday night football, and sometimes you'll get a stinker, but that's where Underdog can come in here. If
Al Michaels always makes it more exciting though.
It's Thursday night football, you guys.
Yeah.
Thursday. It's not Thursday night. It's Thursday night.
Oh man.
Right now, a 30% profit boost, and you can actually add that to Sunday. You can go look at Vikings. You can add that 30% profit boost by going to Underdog. Maybe you want to ride those Aaron Jones touchdowns, those Sam Darnold touchdowns. You can do that. You can take the higher on those on the pick'em side. Go to Underdog Fantasy, download the app, use promo code SCORE for a 50% deposit match. Shout out to Underdog and send me all those pick'em options that you're making.
And Dex, if I'm not a part of that, but I hit an 8 first time in my life, and I swear I posted it on Twitter if anyone wants to see it. I hit an 8-leg parlay on Underdog. Do it because I love the college football props. They give you so many options on Underdog. I hit an 8-legger over the weekend, which is like 75-1. I was speechless. I'd never hit an 8-leg parlay before, and it wasn't. I didn't even have a sweat on it. It was like bang, 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 bang. So I'm a fan as well.
Wow,
like
Thorsky coming in. Let's go, dude.
Yeah.
So, all right, you got the multi-TV setup here for Vikings fans looking to key in on something on college football Saturday or college football weekend. Give us Thor's college football junkie thing to watch for Vikings fans.
This time I want to keep it local because I've been thinking about this game all week, and I will be in the building. And Gopher fans, you guys know I went to Iowa. I'm on the other side of it. Exactly. Last year, the whole Cooper DeJean, the punt return thing at the end and overturned and all that stuff.
I said at the last Gopher game, I did see a Gopher fan wearing a T-shirt that had the full explanation of the fair catch rule on the back. So if you guys need that, you let us know. Okay.
Well, and of course the Iowa fans have been wearing the shirts with it wasn't a fair catch for a year now. I'm just fascinated by that game in general. There is bad blood on both sides there. But from the Vikings perspective and looking towards the future and prospects that you can watch in that game, because I imagine that most people watching this right now are going to be watching that game, 6:30 kickoff on NBC, national TV game in primetime. On the Minnesota side, now Darius Taylor is not draft eligible. He is a true sophomore this year. One thing I've been fascinated about in the early going with him working with Max Brosmer, who they brought over from New Hampshire, the quarterback. Brosmer last year threw to the running back position more than any other quarterback in either the FBS or the FCS. his running back was Dylan Lobby, who was taken in the 5th round by the Raiders. So you come now to the Gophers, where the passing offense and the system for that has been much maligned, and it wasn't very creative. One thing that Brosmer has done, and I'm curious if he had talked to the coaches about this or if he is just doing this on his own, he is making Darius Taylor a good receiver, or maybe more to the point, he is facilitating opportunities for Darius Taylor to turn into a good receiver. The past couple, and this is another underdog prop I have this week, going back to that, both the Darius Taylor over receptions was only 2.5, and his receiving yards are still being set in the teens, like in the mid-teens. It's really interesting to see Darius Taylor's receiving game flower out with a quarterback that looks for the running back. So that's something to keep an eye on. Obviously, the Vikings in the near future could be shopping for a running back. Taylor, you got to wait one more draft class, but keep monitoring his development as a receiver, working with the quarterback that knows how to use a guy like that. And then Brosmer himself. This is a huge test here. You're going up against one of the nation's 5 best defenses. How is Minnesota going to come out and try to attack them? Remember the game a few years ago where it was the coldest wind chill, like top 5 lowest wind chill in the history of college football when the Iowa came to Minnesota? And in that game, PJ Fleck gave the ball to Ibrahim like 41 times, and Ibrahim played great until the very end. He fumbled at like the 9-yard line, and Iowa was able to hold on in that game. This one, you're going to have to throw more, and it's the cold weather. It's not going to take the passing game off the table. Brosmer is a guy that the NFL is interested in. I can tell you guys this for sure. There was a lot of discussion over the summer about him that I had. You're both with scouts, also with guys that run the post season all-star games. The NFL likes him. This is a huge test for him. And then on the other side, it's the Iowa defense that Vikings fans want to keep an eye on. In the college football 2025 game that EA Sports released, Iowa has 4 different defenders that are rated 90 or higher, and 5, I believe, that it's like 88 or 89 or higher. They have stars on every level of that defense, and they send defenders, numerous defenders to the NFL every single year. They have that going on again. There's guys on that defense that I think that the Vikings and Brian Flores would be interested in. So that's something to keep an eye on as well, those Iowa defenders.
Football, yeah, football.
So you are taking the Hawkeyes, huh?
I'm taking the Hawkeyes, and I'm wearing my Hawkeye stuff down there. And for anyone out there, if you're around the stadium, come up and say hi to me. I'm gonna be the doofus in the Iowa stuff. So
I might punch you.
Love to talk to you. Don't punch me, please. Just say
here's
hi.
what bothers me. So this is, I feel like I need to be running the Gophers marketing department. So this is like the second time now that they've done a maroon out when Iowa comes to town, just like they do a gold out when Wisconsin comes to town. Okay, there's thousands of Wisconsin fans at those games. There's thousands of Iowa fans. Don't let them stand. Do a yellow out when Iowa comes so that the Iowa fans look like they're part of the Gopher fans.
Yeah.
Right?
Savvy.
Like, am I missing something? A maroon out, it'll just showcase that there's 7,000 Iowa fans sitting in the end zone over there.
That you should be on retainer for those guys. That's brilliant. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, that's some free advice for the Gopher marketing department right there.
Gophers should win this game. The Gophers need to step up and win this game. It's a winnable game for them.
That's how I feel as an Iowa fan on the other side as well.
Well, that's because that's true.
Thor Nystrom from Matthew Berry's Fantasy Life, if you want fantasy, if you want potentially market related advice on football draft or just life advice, Thor has you covered. Also Thor KU on Twitter/X, man.
See you guys at the stadium on Saturday.
Yes, sure you will. You damn well. Judd's all like, I don't know. I got the Vikings
on a swivel. I don't know. I don't want to
Sunday.
stay for the game. I'll be tailgating. I don't want to stay for the game. I want to go home and watch the game.
I'll see you out there, Judd.
I got to get up the next day for the Vikings. Sports Day is old. He's busy.
I might need a bodyguard, so you can have that role.
Oh no! I'm not defending you.
Amazing. All right, there it is. Thorsday here on Purple Daily. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die. We'll see you guys for a Feedback Friday tomorrow.